look in the mirror and think, what on earth happened to me? I mean, it's not like you're being vain. It's about the extra weight and the bloating and the discomfort that creep in during midlife, making you feel not yourself. Today, I'm sharing how hormones and stress and mindful eating all play a role in midlife weight, and why the gentlest, most effective changes are often the ones that we overlook. Welcome, my friends, to the Midlife Reset Podcast, episode number 32. I'm your host, Cheryl Gordon, and today I want to share a few secrets about how to lose midlife weight, not with deprivation diets or crazy exercise, but by reducing stress. And I want to tell you why it's all so powerful. Now, when I got to menopause, a lot of extra flesh had come on, and I really wasn't very happy with that. I want to show you a picture, if I can figure out my tech here, of what I look like 2 years ago. There you can see we're getting ready to close our pool. We're very excited that we're still swimming on October 4th on 2023. And there's a photo that my honey took of us getting ready to have, look at how healthy our happy hour was. It was also wonderful. And, I looked good. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't look good. I didn't, but you can see there's some extra rolls there, right? So that was really something that was really unnecessary for me to be carrying around. I was just bewildered by all the extra flesh. I mean, I was exercising. You can see we're eating healthy. Look at all the veggies on that tray. And it wasn't about being vain. I mean, I'm 62-year-old grandma. I am totally allowed to be padded, and I'm totally done trying to impress people. But it's just that that body wasn't me. And I know that those excess pounds put additional pressure on my joints, increased my risk for chronic disease, and it also made it really hard to find something to wear in my closet. Nothing really fit. You're always tugging at your clothes. I don't think most of us care about the poochy belly or the stretch marks anymore. Those are badges of honor, my friend. But I do like to dress up and to not have to tug at my waistband all day. I don't like feeling bloated or unhealthy. Because I'm a yoga therapist, I'm very aware of the dangers of low calorie and deprivation diets. One of the biggest risks for midlife women, if you say are consuming under 1,400 calories per day, is loss of muscle and bone tissue. You'd have to be lifting heavy weights to maintain your bone and muscle. And at under 1,400 calories, it's almost impossible to get the protein and the other nutrients that you need. It's such a serious calorie deficit. But that's what every app and every phone and watch and everything wants you to do because a quick fix sells. I didn't want to do that to myself. I knew better. And I had injured myself enough times taking up aggressive exercise regimens that I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole again. But when I looked in the mirror, my first thought was to criticize myself. I'd threatened to put myself under stricter diets or put, more exercise. I was really angry with myself, like I was truant or a bad girl. You know what all that did? All that negative self-talk did? It made me feel worse and it aggravated my stress levels. And does any of this ring true with you, my friend? What if it wasn't stricter food guidelines or more vigorous exercise that you needed? What if it was a gentler, kinder method of shedding the excess pounds in harmony with your body and life? I've put a clear program of mindful eating together that I can send you for free. It's how I lost the little weight that you saw in that photograph. It doesn't cut out food groups or make you feel embarrassed because you have a lapse now and then. I'll give you more details on that in a few minutes. Let's dive in now as to what's really going on behind the scenes with our midlife weight gain. As we enter our 40s and 50s, several key hormones begin to fluctuate. Estrogen declines as the ovaries gradually go offline. Estrogen promotes the accumulation of subcutaneous fat. The loss of estrogen with menopause is associated with an increase in visceral fat. Prior to menopause, the female fat distribution is more preferred on the thighs, hips, or breasts, and that's the subcutaneous kind. But when our estrogen levels start to drop with perimenopause and menopause, this shifts to visceral or mostly abdominal fat. And this is the type of fat that is more associated with diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And I knew that that's the kind of fat that was coming onto my body. Falling estrogen levels can also lead to a decrease, and get this, in serotonin. Serotonin, some of us think about it as the happiness hormone. It's a little more complicated than that, but we know a lack of it contributes to feelings of sadness and anxiety and irritability. The loss of estrogen can result in a decreased density of some receptors, which are involved in the serotonin uptake, and they lower overall serotonin activity. So you can see why midlife women start to get, a little cranky. We just definitely become more vulnerable to stress due to that hormonal shift. So you are not imagining your higher levels of anxiety. There's actually quite a medical reason for that as we become midlife women. Now, when levels of estrogen and progesterone are balanced, estrogen will promote the fat storage while progesterone helps burn it for energy. Some studies have suggested it may also have an anti-glucocorticoid effect in fat tissue, potentially reducing the impact of stress hormones on fat storage. Glucocorticoids, say that 5 times fast, are a class of steroid hormones that play a key role in how the body handles stress. Cortisol is the main hormone of that group, and we'll get back to cortisol in just a second. Stick with me, all this hormonal stuff. Estrogen and aldosterone can cause water retention, while progesterone is a natural diuretic, helping to reduce swelling and water weight. When progesterone levels are low, especially relative to estrogen, it can disrupt the balance, potentially leading to more fat storage, especially in that abdominal area again. Another thing women don't often have on their radar is testosterone, but it does play a crucial role in midlife weight gain. Testosterone drops too, and muscle mass decreases. Muscle tissue is a metabolic powerhouse, as you probably know, because starting in our early 30s, we can lose up to 2% muscle mass per year. The rate of loss speeds up in our 40s and 50s. So that drop in testosterone really helps it, or really makes it hard for us to be able to build muscle. Muscle tissue burns more calories than fat tissue, even when you're sleeping. This means a higher percentage of your daily energy expenditure comes from maintaining muscle mass. Building muscle through things like strength training boosts your basal metabolic rate, or your BMR. That's the number of calories your body burns just breathing, just being alive. So the drop in hormones not only affects our muscle mass, but it also affects where the fat is landing. When we're losing muscle, which we tend to do if we're not really proactive about it, it also not only leads to the metabolism changes, like the weight gain, but it also drags our energy down. You're lugging around an extra 10 or 20 pounds or more unnecessarily. And then when we do try to exercise because we want to get healthy or lose some weight, we have more risk of hurting ourselves. And that, again, has got a lot to do with our drop in hormones. It's just like this vicious circle, right? So let's get back to stress and cortisol. Earlier, we mentioned that this hormone is the main one in that group of glucocorticoids. Cortisol is produced in the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands are on your back, just above your kidneys on either side. And these little babies, every time throughout your entire life, anything that creates a potential survival threat to your system, they will fire up and make you so you're stressed. You're ready for fight or flight. It is a marvelous and proven system that has kept humans thriving for millennia. But the kinds of things that qualify as survival threats in modern world, they can be something like a loud noise, too many unknown people in a confined space, worry about paying bills, an odd smell, anything. It's really an endless list of what could trigger your nervous system. In our modern and complicated lives, the nervous system is completely overwhelmed by potential threats. When cortisol stays high for too long, maybe it's stress, over exercising, lack of sleep, or just talking crap to yourself, it signals your body to store fat, especially around the belly. And that's because your body thinks it needs to conserve energy for a crisis. It's preparing for, we're all going to die, even if that crisis is just the normal everyday stress that you deal with all the time. Cortisol can increase your appetite, especially for carbohydrates, like comfort foods. It triggers specific mechanisms in the brain and body. It upregulates appetite stimulating neuropeptides while inhibiting hormones like leptin, which is the hormone that tells you when you're full. So it makes you more hungry and then tells you, oh no, we haven't had enough yet. And it really enhances the dopamine release in the brain, leading to cravings for those palatable, energy-dense foods like carbohydrates, like comfort foods. So there's a lot of subtle hormonal shifts in the digestive tract that are causing you to crave carbs. Cortisol triggers the breakdown of glycogen into glucose. This floods your system with extra fuel to escape whatever that perceived threat is. Remember, when we go into stress response, just like the dinosaurs, just like the saber-tooth tigers, just like the cavemen, when we go into stress response, we're expecting to fight or flee. We need fast energy for that. But in the modern world, a loud noise, a negative thought, too many people crowded into a room, worrying about your bills or your kids, all of those things don't involve any running or chasing, right? And so we've got all of this energy flooding our system and nowhere to go. The cortisol flooding the system in this way promotes the breakdown of proteins in your muscle tissue because we need those amino acids for the energy. It loves non-carbohydrate sources and it breaks it down into glucose. So you get this flood of sugars, sometimes at the expense of your muscles, because we're anticipating a problem. We're stressed. And as we will study further later on, the spike in glucose triggers an insulin response. And the insulin's job is to store fat, especially in the belly. And of course, we've been talking about how the muscle is under siege really as we get older. And this extra stress effect of breaking down muscle is not a good direction to go in. Cortisol can inhibit protein synthesis, which will hinder your muscle growth. And it also antagonizes the actions of hormones like insulin, which further add fat, especially in the middle, and contribute to muscle loss. So, can you see why managing stress is such a key to weight management? And I think we hear that a lot, but I mean, who can move and live on a mountaintop and meditate all day? Or, you know, who can afford to quit their job and get rid of that horrible boss? I mean, modern life inherently comes with stress. So we need to figure out how to minimize the effects of the cortisol or even minimize the incidences that cortisol is released into the system. We need to figure out a way to support our adrenal glands, which by the time we're 40 or 50 are usually exhausted and have gone offline. So we have to get a strategy for all that. And yet we're so busy and we have so much to do. And it's just, can't somebody come from outside and fix all this for us, right? Girlfriend, I found out the hard way. There's no magic bullet. There's no Prince Charming coming. We need to figure this out for ourselves. Now, yoga and mindfulness tools should be and can be brought into your everyday world. One of the things I had to do to lose the weight is to rejig how I was treating yoga and mindfulness in my world. For example, I would often hit the yoga mat. I tried to do it every morning. I was pretty consistent with that. But in my mind were those messages about you're too fat, you should exercise more, you've got to build muscle mass. All that pressure. There's almost a self-aggression that comes with that messaging. So I would hit the yoga mat and I'd be doing like all these heavy duty poses and I'd be like feeling pressured the whole time I was on my yoga mat. And I didn't really realize I'd fallen into that trap. So one of the things I've had to do is really separate out the yoga practice from all the other things I do for fitness and strength. And it's really been messed up, right, in our Western approach to yoga, where it's very fitness based and often offered through our health club and our gyms. So that was one of the things I had to do. But yoga and mindfulness tools can and should be brought into your everyday world. I mean, it's great to go to your class, and I hope you all are attending classes, either online or in person. But pulling out what you've learned in class during the moment when cravings hit, or during that moment when you notice you're really having those really negative self-talk thoughts, that's where the real results lie. So we need to apply what we already know from yoga and mindfulness. Bring it out of the yoga bag and into your everyday. You got to carry it around like you carry around your smartphone. Now, that's why I've created the Mindful Eating Guide. It's a common sense, step-by-step protocol for learning how to eat in harmony with your unique needs in that moment. So the important thing about mindful eating is you don't cut out any food groups. You can still have carbs. No, nothing is off limits. There are no punishing regimens or things that will take you away from enjoying birthday parties or other social occasions, holidays. You won't be, sticking out in a crowd because you can't eat this, you can't eat that, you have to do this. No, 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 no. You're allowed to eat when you're hungry. It just drops all the diet drama. The essence of the program, and here is where it really gets, as my friend says, rubber hits the road, is the planning. You're going to start to plan like a boss. You're going to start taking charge of what you're eating, not so you can judge yourself, not so you can cut things out or count calories or macros or anything like that. But you're going to think about your day. You're going to think about what you really want out of your day. And you're going to make sure you have the resources, including the right foods at the right time. So you don't starve yourself. You don't miss lunch. You don't run on empty and then end up gorging as you're cooking dinner. All these kinds of things. The other really important tools in mindful eating are things like journaling, looking inside for the answers instead of relying on an app or a coach or somebody from outside telling you what you're allowed to do. So really becoming your own best friend, paying attention to yourself for a change. Well, I got to tell you, girlfriend, it transformed how I interact with food, cleared up a lot of those bad girl messages that made me feel, truant. And I shed the weight. I'll put a picture of 2 years later in the show notes if you want to see what I look like now. Um, and I'm pretty proud of myself. I have to tell you, I am pretty proud of myself for sticking to the program, for figuring this out. And I am so, so excited to share this podcast with you and to share the tools like the Mindful Eating Guide with you because, girlfriend, we can all do this. I'm not a special snowflake. I don't have any, Prince Charming helping me figure everything out. You can do this and we could do it together. So I hope you'll check out the show notes because I'm going to give you the link to get the Mindful Eating Guide. You can also find it on my website, CherylGordonYT.com. Do send me your questions. I have live events regularly where I go on Zoom and we talk about this stuff. I just really would love to share more with you. So let's stay in touch. Have a great day wherever you are, and I'll see you next week. What if you were to feel lighter, sleep better, and get more energy? Join me in a 1-hour masterclass on November 2nd to learn 5 simple and effective steps to reset your body and mind for midlife. You don't need quick fixes. You don't need extreme routines. I'll be giving you all of the information in this masterclass. You can register on my website, so check the show notes for the address. See you next week.